It's about to flow!
Welcome everybody to another episode of Fantasy News on a Tuesday. I am your disheveled goblin host Daniel Green, and for those of you wondering, yes, from now on, Fantasy News will be on a Tuesday. This is due to just my own scheduling and working on big projects being better for me if I go ahead and get Fantasy News done earlier in the week rather than later. And I've noticed a whole lot of publishing news tends to drop on a Monday, and I want to get that to you, especially as I'm trying to shift Fantasy News back to being more book-oriented in a timely manner. God, I almost had it! Speaking of keeping Fantasy News more oriented to the book world, let's go ahead and kick off this one with some cover reveals. The first one we're going to get into is from Harper Voyager, a prestigious name in publishing, who tweeted out, "Wake up, fantasy lovers! It's time for a reveal of #Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner, the follow-up to the #1 international bestseller, God Killer, on sale March 12th, or February 15th in the UK. And I want to go ahead and say, this cover kicked absolute ass. I immediately wanted to see who the artist was, but it wasn't in this tweet, which is becoming more and more of an issue I've noticed with cover reveals, not less. And it bothers me because it's my job to try and give those artists credit, promotion here in Fantasy News, and make sure I'm not promoting some AI cover. So I had to do a deep dive to figure out who this was by. But this wasn't even the first one in this day of Fantasy News I had to go searching for. There was even one I could not find because I did the whole reverse Google image search, and nowhere this cover was posted was I able to find credit. Granted, there might have been some, there was a ton of links, but I checked like 8 before I gave up. I liked the cover of Sunbringer enough though to continue the journey until I did find the artist, Tom Roberts, who is just an incredible artist. Holy crap, scrolling through this guy's Instagram was just a delight, and I highly recommend you go give him a follow. And he had posted the cover, which is how I found it. And this is true. Yes, there were multiple covers I looked into, found the artist for, and revealing today. But the one I had given up on, I happened to notice, was also posted by Tom Roberts, like 2 posts ago. That was actually just an insane coincidence. 2 covers I loved, both from this guy, and that's going to be our next piece of news, because we also got the cover reveal for The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. Shadow of the Leviathan, Book 1. Coming February of next year. I then, out of pure curiosity, went over to Hotterscape, the publisher of this book's Instagram, and noticed in their actual cover reveal for The Tainted Cup, they did not credit Tom, despite it being the cover reveal and him having credited them in his post. This is these people's career, and a lot of the time, the best exposure they get. Why don't you credit them? Can we please, for the love of God, especially in the day and age of AI covers coming into the space, start crediting artists as they should be? I just also want to point out, even in the tweet that originally brought the Tainted Cup to my attention, the author has now had to respond to tell curious fans who his cover artist was because the publisher couldn't be bothered. Credit the cover artists. You are doing a cover reveal. Not a reveal of the text in the book. It's a reveal of the art. Am I insane?
This is madness.
I'm not saying don't credit the author. I'm saying credit both. Very important note. Do not go harass authors about this. They are not in charge of how their books often get revealed, and sometimes don't even communicate with the social media teams that are doing it. It's just if you happen to see a publisher, big or small, that is putting out a cover reveal and not crediting artists politely, but repeatedly, please ask for them to then include the artist so that we as fans can go and follow and support the artists who maybe have done some incredible work that inspired us to pick up a book we fall in love with. Don't judge a book by its cover. That's what they're actually meant for. Reeling it back in. I understand that was a lot. Don't worry, we're going to talk about some happy, awesome stuff later with like r/fantasy voting for the best self-published books of all time. Excited to get there. But first, let's talk about another cover reveal and like viral internet success story with Ladarian Williams' Blood at the Root. Ladarian tweeted out, 3 years ago, I made it my mission to write a YA fantasy book with a black boy lead. No police brutality and no racial trauma. This is Malik Baron, a country boy from Helena, Alabama, blessed with hoodoo magic. Blood at the Root will be available May of 2024. And would you look at this? He credited his cover artist without even being asked immediately. So if you'd like to check out a book inspired by fantasy culture within America that's often vastly underrepresented in the space, of course, link down below. But this is going to take us to the badass Kickstarters that are currently rumbling on through the fantasy space. And I have to give it a shout out here. Dungeon Crawler Carl has had a tremendous Kickstarter success, and I'm sure as of me posting this video will have passed the amount of money I raised in my Kickstarter, with only, I think as of the time of you watching this video, 3 days left to go in the campaign. Feel free to go support Dungeon Crawler Carl and push it even further over Neon Ghost's success. I'm kidding, of course. Huge congratulations to Matt Domino Man for his crazy success in the Dungeon Carl Kickstarter. And for the About the Series, Dungeon Crawler Carl just states, a man, his ex-girlfriend's cat, a game show at the end of the world. Stop. That, I like it. Okay, that's all we need to know apparently. And shout out to his cover artist, Scott Wegner. I may say their names wrong, but I will credit the cover artists. Before we get into one final cover reveal though, I actually want to give a brief apology to Zamil Akhtar, who reached out to me and is a friend of the channel and said, hey, I'm about to launch my Kickstarter, would you mind talking about fantasy news? Which I did. He provided me a bunch of art, all of which I forgot to use when I talked about it in the last episode of Fantasy News. So here it is right now. His Kickstarter's launching soon. You can go ahead and follow the project. It looks like it's going to be sensational. Zamil, I just wanted to say, I'm really sorry. I have no idea how I made that mistake. Just late night editing and not paying close enough attention. But the final cover reveal we're gonna be talking about today is actually coming from my publisher as well, and that would be for Kraken Rider Z from David Estes and Dirk Ashton. Dirk Ashton you may know from writing Rise of Gods, Wrath of Gods, War of the Gods, and the Paternus series. And of course, David Estes is known for Fate Marked and Kingfall. And this cover art is done by Daniel Kemerudin, with a blurb reading, if there's one thing dragons fear, it's a kraken. I know it's not an intelligent part of my brain, but there's a big part of it that goes, kraken, dragon, fight? I'm there. I gotta ask though, which of all these covers and things that we've talked about is your favorite? Let me know in the comments down below. And is this too much cover stuff going on? I'm always trying to adjust fantasy news. Let me know if you are like, it's too much, or if you want even more. Let me know in the comments down below. But we're gonna go ahead and move on over into some self-pub recognition news, because we've also had Reddit put out its yearly best self-published books of all time list. And it's pretty interesting to look at, partially because of just the dominance that is there. Just getting on into it, the top 3 of 2023 are The Sword of Kagan by M.L. Wong, Of Fire and Blood by Ryan Chahill, which I have not read, and Unsold by Will, which I have, and wasn't my favorite, though everyone keeps telling me I will eventually fall in love with the series. I'm not surprised at all to see Sword of Kagan's dominance continue. Sword of Kagan and Unsold for many years now have been in the top 3, with Unsold jumping into the top 3 all the way back in 2019 and the Sword of Kagan jumping in just 1 year after, and neither of them leaving since. Though shout out for Sufficiently Advanced Magic having just as dominant a reign, except for 2 years, this and 2020, where it was shoved out by Orconomics, a book I'm actually reading right now. For the full top 10 though, continuing to number 4, we have The Dark Prophet Saga by J. Zachary Pike, Tainted Dominion by Crystal Matar, Threadlight series by Zach Argyle, Mortal Techniques by Rob J. Hayes, Songs of Chaos by Michael R. Miller, Dragon Spirits by L.L. McCrae, which is tied for 8th with Mage Errant by John Bierce, Miss Percy's Guide by Quinby Olson, and River World by M.L. Spencer. Of course, if you'd like to check out the full list, it's linked right on down below, and congratulations to everyone who even made it. That's just a huge achievement, and I love seeing more and more promotion of self-published authors. Now, before we get into the rest of the serious news, I would like to do a quick game with you all of who did it better, because my good friend and publisher Bryce O'Connor is officially releasing the second book in the Stormweaver series today, Fire and Song, and I told him I would do like a sarcastic like whatever about it, but he's been such a good sport about me doing even a fairly negative review of the first book in the series before he even signed me, which he was just fine with. And on top of that, he's just constantly working with smaller authors to get them connected, giving them advice. So I wanted to say, one, Bryce, a lot of us love you. You do incredible work, and thank you for just being who you are, and you totally have earned the huge fan base you have found for the Stormweaver series. But this is your cover. And if I just go we all suddenly see a whole lot of cake. Like, that is, without a doubt, the actual focus of this cover once the text is off. Shout out to the cover artist here. I would like to put forth, though, it's not the thickest cake, and I think I can provide thicker. Ugh. So you tell me, audience, who did it better? Me or the cover? Bryce, there's so much ass on this cover, and I love it. Now, as we stray further from the book news world and into chaos, I need to speak on a franchise I well and truly thought I would never have to again. And if it was just the headline of this article, I probably even wouldn't. And that's because the director of the Fantastic Beasts movie says the franchise has been parked by Warner Brothers. Yes, David Yates officially has said that despite the planned 5 films. But once you get into this article, the planned 5 films is where, in my opinion, the actually interesting part of this comes into play. Because he, as well as many others, did not know it was supposed to be 5 films until J.K. Rowling just said that, expanding it from the planned trilogy in front of a whole lot of fans without warning. The details are as follows. The idea that there was going to be 5 films was a total surprise to most of us, Yates said. Rowling just mentioned it spontaneously at a press conference screening once. We were presenting some clips of FB1. We'd all signed up for FB1 very enthusiastically. And Joe, bless her, came on and said, "Oh, by the way, there's 5 of them." We all looked at each other because no one had told us there was going to be 5. We'd committed to this 1, so that was the first we'd heard of it. It should be pointed out, Warner Brothers never corrected this statement or gave any indication that 5 films wasn't the plan, despite 5 being cited in media stories for years afterward. And I'm just in awe. The older I get, the more I learn. Even at the highest levels, Hollywood's just doing stuff. And as easy as it would seem to be to put all of the blame on this or J.K. Rowling, the fact that no one corrected her and this seems to just be up in the air proves this franchise, this whole next leg of Harry Potter, was about as well planned out as my next bowel movement. I can't imagine having a director learning at the same time that he's not going to be making 3 films, but 5, and then not even following through with that and shelving it at 3, and kind of just misleading fans. Like, what are we even supposed to take away from that? That's insane! I personally, just total speculation, really doubt we're going to see 2 more Fantastic Beasts films. The last one just vastly underperformed at the box office, and HBO is working on their Harry Potter live action series. So I think they're going to be putting their eggs in that basket. It's just nice to know in hindsight we're all not crazy. They all were for how they were handling this multi-billion-dollar franchise. Oh my God. The more I have looked into this, the more I feel the need to add there could be all kinds of reasons why this was sprung on the creative team. Maybe the studio never actually planned for 5 films and it was just a way to entice investors. Total speculation, not an accusation. Or, you know, J.K. Rowling does have a history of just making stuff up in her worlds, and maybe she was just making up there could be 5 films and hoped everything would fall into place after it. We don't know. All we know is that the creative team involved with it was seriously surprised by decisions going on behind closed doors with Rowling and the studio, and that is not what I would call a conducive setup for creative quality. Holy crap. And in truly the most last minute of last minute fantasy news updates, I was about to go to bed and I had to put this shirt back on. Rebecca Yarrow's Fourth Wing is going to be adapted by Amazon Studios in partnership with Michael B. Jordan's Outlier Studios. This is not just a deal for the first book, but its sequel, Iron Flame, and the remaining 3 books planned in Yarrow's Fourth Wing universe, the Empyrean. Now, Yarrow is tied to this as a non-writing executive producer, and to Fourth Wing fans, welcome to the same world as Wheel of Time fans. A Amazon adaptation is certainly a roller coaster. Be ready to enjoy it, and I will of course be right here alongside with you providing updates and reviews the whole way. If you're curious of my thoughts of Fourth Wing, I did a drunken first and last with it with Kayla, that is Probably, I think, my most underrated video based on views. So go ahead and check that out if you want to. It is a blast. I'm skipping over a whole bunch of stuff I can't read on YouTube. If I get my hands on you, really honestly get my hands on you, I don't know if I'll be able to stop. I'll be late to D&D today, there's sex! And now, I'm pledging it here, I will actually read the book beginning to end and its sequel before this adaptation drops, I promise. But moving on into the wider fantasy news, we had it announced that there is yet another Carrie adaptation in the works. And as a gargantuan Stephen King fan and fan of the Brian De Palma original adaptation of Carrie, stop. No. Bad. Now, I will say, though, Hunter Schafer has apparently been tapped to play the lead. She does look like someone who could be made up to play the part. Though, you know, the person in the book is described as, like, not super pretty. I don't want to be creepy, but, like, Hunter Schafer, very pretty. They're going to do the thing they did with the other Carrie adaptation, where they try and convince you someone who is gorgeous isn't, because Hollywood cannot help themselves. That is what they're going to do now. In very cool looking trailer news, we also got the trailer for The Blue-Eyed Samurai, co-created by wife and husband team Noizumi and Michael Green, who previously worked on Logan and Blade Runner. Premiering on November 3rd, in 17th century Japan, when borders are closed to the outside world, citizens would never see a face that was not Japanese, except in rare cases of illegal trade. Our hero, Mizu, knows there were only 4 white men in Japan at the time of her birth, and sets off to kill these men, one of whom might be her father, who made her a creature of shame. But revenge is not an option for women, so Mizu must forge her revenge quest while hiding her gender, as well as her blue eyes. And the animation style of this trailer is really interesting, and this creative duo behind it, as well as that particular pitch, makes it so that, yeah, in November, I will be tuning in to Blue-Eyed Samurai. We have also had it confirmed that despite all the recent Hollywood shakeups, the Henry Cavill Highlander series we talked about a bit ago is still moving ahead over at Lionsgate, and I can already see now, if this does turn out to be bad, which I am not saying it will, every single review is going to do a stupid there can only be one joke. That's just how it's gonna be. Something that does give me, at least from like a fan of action sequences angle, interest in this is the same director of John Wick, Chad Stahelski, dyslexia, is going to be the director here. And I don't know, if he can do all that fun stuff with guns, I'm pretty excited to see what he can do with Highlander. And in the final piece of news we're going to be covering today, the White House, yes, we're going there, has issued its first executive order in regards to artificial intelligence, trying to guarantee a safe, secure, and trustworthy path forward. The key points of this executive order are covering things like a requirement that developers of the most powerful AI systems share their safety test results and other critical information with the US government, develop standards, tools, and tests to help ensure that AI systems are safe, secure, and trustworthy, protect against the risk of using AI to engineer dangerous biological material, good luck sleeping tonight, protect Americans from AI-enabled fraud and deception by establishing standards and best practices for detecting AI-generated content and authenticating official content, establish an advanced cybersecurity program to develop AI tools to find and fix vulnerabilities in critical software, and to order the development of a national security memorandum that directs further actions on AI and security, as well as getting into many more broader issues that could come about with the utilization of AI. And why am I covering this? Just to remind you that we are actively living in the sci-fi dystopia we all feared as children. It's starting. Yay! But this has just been your latest episode of Fantasy News. Like and subscribe if you have not already, and hit the Patreon if you want to see a sneak peek chapter 1 of my upcoming Goblin Defense Attorney novel, or just go ahead and check out any of my books floating right by my head. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.